Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin with major breaking news tonight. Toronto Mayor John Tory is stepping down after admitting to a relationship with a former staffer. Tory making the announcement at a last-minute press conference at City Hall just a few hours ago.
I recognize that permitting this relationship to develop was a serious error in judgment on my part. It came at a time when Barb, my wife of 40-plus years, and I were enduring many lengthy periods apart while I carried out my responsibilities during the pandemic. As a result, I've decided that I will step down as mayor so that I can take the time to reflect on my mistakes and to do the work of rebuilding the trust of my family.
Let's go right to our Dale Manukduk with more. He's at City Hall tonight. And Dale, you were at that press conference. Tell us more about what Tory said and why he has decided to resign.
Yeah, Kelda, I was here with the rest of the press, and even though we knew he was going to make a statement about this relationship, this is not the conclusion that anyone expected when we gathered in this office behind me at 8:30. He got right to the point. He says that during the pandemic, he developed a relationship with one of his employees and that it did not meet the standard he holds for himself as mayor and as a family man. Now, Tory says that the relationship ended mutually earlier this year and that the employee some time ago found employment elsewhere. Now, you heard in that clip Tory talking about his wife of 40 years, Barb, and rebuilding trust with his family. Here's a little bit more of what he had to say.
As well, I think it is important, as I always have, for the office of the mayor not to be in any way tarnished and not to see the city government itself put through a period of prolonged controversy arising out of this error in judgment on my part, especially in light of some of the challenges that we face as a city. I'm deeply sorry, and I apologize unreservedly to the people of Toronto and to all of those hurt by my actions, including my staff, my colleagues on City Council, and the public service.
Now, Kelda, we know that Tory was the successor to Rob Ford, who was plagued by controversy during his time as mayor, and that Tory was elected to restore some respect to this office. He'll be working with the city manager, the city clerk, and the deputy mayor to ensure a smooth transition over the coming days. He did not take any questions from reporters, but did ask that privacy be given to all parties involved. But tonight, Kelda, just a bombshell, Tory stepping down.
Yeah, and a lot of reaction has been pouring in since the announcement. Dale, I know you've spoken to some city councillors. How are they reacting to the news?
They are just as shocked as everybody. When I came to City Hall, I saw one councillor racing into the building just before the announcement was made. So there are going to be some moving parts here. We caught up with longtime councillor Paula Fletcher and first-term councillor Jamal Myers.
It's very unfortunate. I feel terrible for everybody involved, but I feel very badly for our city because everyone's thrown for a loop here. It's Friday night at 8:30. So everyone's going to wonder what's going to happen. I just want to say for myself, just going to stay calm, steady hand on the tiller. Let's get us through to the next phase here.
He had a very strong mandate. You know, whatever your differences with the mayor, he was very well respected on all sides. I think right now it's really just, you know, having council come to help navigate the city through these unprecedented times.
Kelda, both Fletcher and Myers came here with a similar message that the city needs a strong council, not a strong mayor, referencing those extraordinary powers granted to Mayor Tory during his third term. Fletcher says that given how early it is in this term, that there will be a by-election, but I'm sure that our Sean Jeffords will break more of that down with you, Kelda.
Thanks so much for that, Dale. And yes, we will be going to Sean Jeffords, our municipal affairs reporter, in just a bit. But first, let's go to Farah Morali now in the newsroom with more reaction to this breaking news. Farah, as Dale said, bombshell announcement from the mayor tonight. You also have been gathering reaction. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Kelda, you know, the news comes as a shock to so many people tonight, including some of Tory's current and former colleagues. You heard from some of them there. Let's start with City Councillor Diane Sachs. She issued a statement this evening saying, I'm deeply disappointed by Mr. Tory's lack of judgment in having a sexual relationship with a woman under his authority. This is an abuse of the office of mayor. I'm grieved by the pain and embarrassment he has caused to his family. Very concerned about the financial burden he has placed on the city. The mayor's sudden resignation in the midst of his first strong mayor budget leaves the city with no plausible way to fill the $1 billion+ gap that he told us all not to worry about. The cost of an otherwise unnecessary by-election only makes this worse. We've, of course, that was a message that you heard there from current City Councillor Diane Sachs. We've also been tracking reaction online. Some of that is coming from former City Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam, of course now an NDP MPP. She put out this tweet earlier tonight saying, "It's no secret that John Tory and I had many political disagreements. Tonight, I fully agree that he should resign. His is not a simple one-time lapse of judgment. Tory was her boss, and this is an abuse of power." Now, of course, when this news first broke of Tory having an affair with what was then a staffer of the city, a lot of questions about whether he would actually step down. I asked political strategist Alim Kanji, also an expert in municipal politics, about what he made of Tory's decision to immediately step down.
I think it's quick and decisive. There are others we've seen in the business of politics that have sought to fight and clear their name. Memories of Bill Clinton certainly come up, and there's others, Canadian politicians, of course, as well. But I think at this time and at this age, when you look at John Tory and you look at his age, fighting this in the public eye and completing your term that would take you to the ripe old age of 72 when you finish your term probably wasn't worth the fight for him.
Now, a lot of questions, of course, about what happens next. He stepped down, but one thing he did say is that he had made the integrity commissioner aware of the relationship, asked him to review it, this relationship being with someone who was at the time a city staffer. Earlier, CBC News spoke to Muniza Sheikh. She's an employment lawyer about that issue. She's also the integrity commissioner for the city of Brampton.
I suspect that the integrity commissioner is going to be looking at whether or not it was appropriate to have this relationship, despite the fact that it's being deemed as one that is consensual. So absolutely, there could be repercussions for the mayor, notwithstanding the fact that he's resigned.
So certainly it's the end of Tory's term, or soon will be the end of Tory's term as mayor, but it could be, Kelda, the beginning of other challenges for him.
All right, thanks so much for that, Farah. And now we are going to Sean Jeffords, who has more insight on what will happen in the city now that Tory has stepped down. Let's now bring in our municipal affairs reporter, Sean Jeffords, for a closer look at what this all means for our city. Sean, what happens now?
Well, hi, Kelda. I think at this point it's really fair to say that it's too early to say. We're still trying to sort out all the details, but what we do know is that John Tory does still remain the mayor tonight, in spite of his resignation. He says he's going to stay on to work with city staff, the city manager, and Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvey to ensure an orderly transition. Now, what we understand is that McKelvey will serve as interim or acting mayor for the time being after Tory's resignation, and then the city clerk or the city staff will effectively try to decide how to proceed from there. It seems like City Council will have some options in front of it. We could effectively have an extremely rare mayoral by-election. Now, that'll be up to city staff. They could perhaps appoint someone. It's too early to say. But, what we do know is that this comes at a very challenging time for City Council. On Wednesday, the city was to pass its 2023 budget, and that budget was penned by John Tory under the new Strong Mayor legislation.
And Sean, this was Tory's third term as mayor. He steered us through a global pandemic. What does this mean for his legacy? And do you think this scandal will overshadow everything he's accomplished?
Well, it's hard to see it not impacting his legacy. I think you touched on it there, Kelda. Mayor John Tory swept into office in 2014, promising to bring stability to City Hall. It was a scandal-plagued place then under former Mayor Rob Ford. And Tory rode high in the polls, I would say, throughout most of his 9 years. He swept to re-election twice, winning big mandates, and had done so just last fall. Now, I think that we haven't really seen what the public reaction will be to this yet. It'll be really interesting to see over the next couple of days what that looks like. But I think from the city councillors that I've spoke to this point, people are saying it was a good decision for him to resign, and they support that decision.
Thanks for all your insight tonight, Sean. That's our Sean Jeffords at City Hall tonight.
Thank you.
And turning to other news now, a 24-year-old man has been arrested and charged with first-degree murder in a fatal hit-and-run on Danforth Avenue. It happened on Sunday morning just before 4 a.m. near Danforth and Cedarvale. Police say the victim was walking along the sidewalk when the suspect struck him with a vehicle. The driver took off, but police say he has now been arrested and charged. The victim, 25-year-old Gabriel Del Castillo Malali, was taken to hospital where he died. A third teen girl charged with second-degree murder in connection with a swarming attack on a homeless man in Toronto has been denied bail. The judge releasing her decision this evening. The teen is set to be transferred to an open security youth detention facility. 4 more girls who are facing charges in the case have been released on bail. 2 others were denied bail earlier this week. And 1 remaining youth has yet to have a bail decision. 59-year-old Ken Lee died in hospital after he was allegedly beaten and stabbed by a group of girls. It happened in the early morning hours of December 18th, not far from the downtown shelter where Lee was staying. A total of 8 girls, ranging in age from 13 to 16, have all been charged with second-degree murder. Doug Ford responding to questions today about developers attending a fundraising event for his daughter's wedding. The premier saying the developers were family friends and insists nothing unethical happened. Mike Crawley has this story.
Premier Doug Ford posted about his daughter's wedding to his official Facebook account and his official Instagram account.
It's really personal, and this is my daughter's wedding.
As first reported by Global News, some developers attended what's called a stag and doe, a pre-wedding event where invited guests are asked to donate cash to the couple. Ford did not tell Ontario's Integrity Commissioner about the event until 5 months after it happened, only after a reporter started looking into it.
That's the first time that's ever come out in Canadian history, someone asking about someone's daughter's wedding. But anyways, it's cleared with the Integrity Commissioner.
The information Ford provided the Integrity Commissioner, that the developers who attended are friends of the family, in some cases for decades. Ford also told the ethics watchdog that he had no knowledge of gifts given to the couple and that no government business was discussed at the event.
He cleared it 1,000%, not 999, 1,000%.
That didn't stop the questions, including who exactly were these developer friends?
Wow, you know something? Okay, so I know hundreds of developers. I know hundreds of private sector folks.
Why did Ford wait so long to tell the Integrity Commissioner?
This is something very private and personal to our family.
And as the questions persisted?
I have 2 more weddings coming up too, so we'll give you the list after that too. It's ridiculous. This is ridiculous, to be frank with you.
The Premier's explanation just doesn't pass the smell test, especially given all the controversy around these Greenbelt land deals that are going to benefit a handful of land speculators financially in such an extreme way.
Last fall, the Ford government gave the owners of 15 Greenbelt properties the go-ahead to develop homes. This came despite Ford's promising repeatedly since 2018 that he would not touch the Greenbelt. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's go to Safia Kambalia from the Weather Network now with a first check on your forecast. Safia, so good to have you with us. How's it looking out there?
Thank you. Yes, we're talking about the pothole blitz. We're talking about that freeze and thaw cycle, and we're talking about this temperature roller coaster. Yesterday was 6 degrees. That's 6 degrees above the seasonal average and above the freezing mark. And coming up in the long range forecast, we'll talk even about temperatures that will be March or April, like that warm air mass has really pushed away any of that cold air that had been in place and really has melted most of the snow that was on the ground. Still a little bit of a snowpack hanging around. For those of you in cottage country and to the north, yesterday not only was mild, it was also the 3rd rainiest day ever in February. 30.6 millimeters shy of a day back in 1975. It was also windy yesterday with winds that were 70 to 80 kilometers an hour. Now into the overnight period, we still have a little bit of that chillier northwest wind in place, which is why it'll feel nearly into the minus double digits into your overnight period, but that doesn't hang on for long. A mild southerly flow will be in place that'll make for a balmy and mild Saturday and Sunday with plenty of sunshine and temperatures that are anywhere from 2 to 8 degrees above the seasonal mark, but things fall off the rails with active weather in the long range.
While I deeply regret having to step away from a job that I love in a city that I love even more, I believe in my heart it is best to fully commit myself to the work that is required to repair these most important relationships.
Recapping our top story tonight, Toronto Mayor John Tory has resigned after admitting to a relationship with a staffer. Tory was just months into his third term as mayor. He confirmed he's stepping down in a news conference late this evening. He said the relationship came at a time when he and his wife were enduring many lengthy periods apart during the pandemic. He apologized to the people of Toronto, his colleagues on City Council, and his wife of more than 40 years. Tory says he will now take the time to reflect on his mistakes and work to rebuild the trust with his family. It was a frightening situation for passengers on board a Flair Airlines flight from Cancun to Toronto on Tuesday. The plane nosedived, the oxygen mask came down, and passengers say they thought the worst. Now, thankfully, the plane landed safely after diverting to Florida. But as Ali Chiasson reports, passengers say they were left in the dark for almost an hour.
For 45 minutes, it was sheer terror and chaos on that flight.
Maysam Delavari and everyone on board Flair Airlines flight F82615 lived through their worst nightmare as they started to reach cruising altitude.
The pilot came on and said that for the flight attendants to get back to their seats. And usually in my mind when that happens, it's for turbulence.
But then the oxygen masks came down.
We could definitely tell that the plane was pointing downward. People's moods dramatically changed. There was screaming, there was kids crying.
For 45 minutes, passengers heard nothing from the crew. Was it an engine problem? Were they going to crash?
I recorded a video just saying goodbye. And I sent text messages to my family. And this was all because we didn't know what was happening. So we were still on the descent. Masks are down. There's screaming, there's crying.
Their plane was flying from Cancun to Toronto. The pilot diverted the aircraft to Florida when the emergency happened. Aviation expert Jason Rabinowitz explains what happens when a cabin depressurizes.
So what typically happens is the aircraft will take off and the onboard systems automatically pressurize the aircraft. The pilots operating the aircraft, they'll rapidly descend the aircraft to get down to about 10,000, 7,000 feet. So the aircraft doesn't need that pressurization system anymore, and they can equalize with the outside air. So the investigators will definitely be taking a look at what happened with that aircraft. Was it a system malfunction? Was it a sensor issue? Was there some sort of leak in the aircraft?
The plane landed safely, and each passenger were told they would be receiving a full reimbursement for the flight and expenses and receive a free flight for two with Flair Airlines. But that's not what Maysam Delavari cares about. He wants those 45 minutes back.
I thought that this was the end and I was gonna, pass in a tragic accident and never see my family again.
Flair Airlines says it's standard procedure for a pilot to manage the emergency and land safely before communicating to passengers. Quote, "The safety and well-being of our passengers and crew is our highest priority. The crew responded ably and the flight landed without further incident." That aircraft was deemed fit to fly and is back in the sky today. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
A Toronto street notorious for speeding saw the most tickets issued for a 7th month in a row. A speed camera on Parkside Drive racked up almost 2,000 fines in December 2022. And that's according to the latest data from Toronto's automated speed enforcement system. In total, almost 20,000 tickets have been issued since a speed camera was installed on the street in April of last year. Safety advocates have long called for enhanced safety measures along the major road, which borders the eastern edge of High Park. Those calls were renewed when a couple was killed in a 5-vehicle crash in the fall of 2021. The city is launching its first pothole repair blitz of the year tomorrow. Weather permitting, Toronto City crews will work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to repair as many potholes as possible. If you're driving or cycling across the city tomorrow, you can expect minor delays. The public is asked to respect work zones and give crews space while they make the repairs. And this is a live look at the Toronto skyline as we head to break. Partly cloudy with a few flurries tonight. Safia will be back with your extended forecast coming up. Let's go back to Safia now with a look at your long-range forecast. And Safia, a good weekend to head outside.
Thank you. Well, let's pick back where we left off. We were talking a little bit about that mild, lovely, balmy, sunny weekend. Perfect if you want to get out and enjoy not cold weather, but not great if you want to make the snowman or do some tobogganing. Mild conditions continue into Monday. You'll hold on to the warmth, but you'll also add in a little taste of some active weather that will be with us for the long-range forecast. It's because of this boundary that's setting up really all the way from Newfoundland to Cancun, Mexico. It will act as a conveyor belt for a few consecutive rainy systems to visit us this upcoming work week. Not snowy systems. It is not nearly cold enough. Midweek and to the end of this upcoming work week, we will have more to add to the rainfall totals that are also already very impressive. In fact, in December, we had 81 millimeters of rainfall, and January and February have been above the monthly rainfall totals as well. That is due to continue. Even yesterday, we still have pooling and ponding on some of the roadways, but all of that extra Gulf moisture will really uptick the temperatures. With those upcoming systems, we have nearly mid-teen warmth. This is April-like, late March-like weather for Wednesday, even into Thursday, hanging on to the double digits for a 2-day warm stretch for some of you, even more prominent towards the south and to the west in places like Niagara Falls, followed by a bit of a cool down into the weekend, but even double digits for those of you up into Barrie if you are a snow lover and want to get out and hit the slopes. And if you're looking for real winter-like cold to return, you're going to have to wait most likely until the end of February and into early March. But until then, enjoy the brilliant sunshine for this upcoming weekend with temperatures that are about 7 degrees above normal, which should be around the freezing mark this time of year.
Thanks so much for that, Safia. And that is our show for you tonight and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and have a great weekend, everyone.